What if I told you the thing you keep waiting for is the reason you never finish? I'm talking about motivation, that initial rush, when a new idea appears, when everything feels possible, you feel unstoppable. But then, a few days pass, the work becomes repetitive, the excitement slowly fades, and the motivation disappears. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're lazy. And it's not because you lack talent. You're just using the wrong fuel. Let me tell you a story, a very simple story, about a young watchmaker and a clock that seemed impossible to fix. But that story changed everything. Leo was a young watchmaker. He inherited an old workshop from his late father, a man once respected in the craft. The shop was filled with clocks, tiny gears, delicate springs, and the constant ticking sound. Leo was truly talented. He understood how everything worked. But Leo lacked patience. He quickly grew bored of repetition. The small daily tasks, cleaning old watches, replacing batteries, adjusting clock hands. In Leo's mind, he is not just an ordinary watchmaker, but rather a brilliant inventor. His notebook is filled with grand designs. No watches can be found within those pages, but it all remains on paper. Not a single one has ever been completed. While Leo remains lost in his idle dreams, the shop begins to grow empty and sparse. Dust settles over the wooden counter and blankets the ceiling. One by one, the regular customers slowly disappear, and the silence grows ever louder. Louder even than the ticking of the clocks hanging on the wall. Leo fails to realize it in time, and he is slowly losing everything. And then, one fine day, a special guest steps into his shop that morning. An old man, about 70 years old, walked into the shop. He carried with him a large, ancient clock. It was heavy. It seemed the clock no longer ticked. The clock's body was covered with the weathered marks of time. The clock had stopped ticking for many decades. Many skilled watchmakers had given up and turned it away. They said it was severely damaged and beyond repair. But Leo did not think so. Leo's heart began to beat faster. Finally. This was no ordinary task. This was a true challenge for Leo. An opportunity he had longed for to prove to himself that I will do my absolute best to fix it. The first few days passed by in a blur. Leo worked tirelessly. He worked without a single break. Every gear of the clock was disassembled with great care. Every detail, even components as tiny as a screw, was placed in its exact spot. He felt as though he were being brought back to life once again. But then, the real work had only just begun. Over 1,000 tiny parts. Every single detail had to be meticulously inspected, cleaning each part, even the smallest one, and measuring them all over again. The work began to move so slowly that it started to frustrate Leo. Tedious, repetitive, over and over again. And then, after a week, Leo's motivation began to fade away. Leo gazed at the thousands of ancient clock parts before him and felt his mind go blank. The thought of giving up began to return. That night, Leo couldn't sleep. He sat alone in the workshop, surrounded by darkness and silence. He opened his father's old work desk. One drawer had been stuck for years. Inside were old leather journals, covered in dust. Work journals. No sketches of genius, no grand ideas. Just simple notes, fixing gears, replacing springs. Slow work, repetitive work, and exhausting. On the final page, his father wrote a short message. Leo stood still. He looked at the silent clock in the corner. A clock doesn't need feelings. It only needs rules. In that moment, Leo understood. His father wasn't great because he was always motivated. He was great because he showed up every single day. The next morning, Leo returned to the shop. Without waiting for inspiration, he made one simple rule: 4 hours every morning. Whether he liked it or not, Leo kept working. The first days passed slowly. Almost no visible progress. One morning, Leo could only manage to do one single thing: cleaning a tiny detail. Previously, he would have quit. But now, things are different. After 4 hours, Leo put his tools down and told himself, "Tomorrow, I'll continue." Day after day, something strange began to happen. Leo stopped chasing inspiration and began to find calm. A quiet pride appeared, not from big ideas, but from doing one small thing well. Then, one morning, he saw it. A single tooth on a tiny gear was bent. The flaw was tiny, almost invisible. Only someone patient enough could find it. Leo fixed the tooth, carefully, slowly. Then he began putting everything back together, one gear at a time, one screw at a time. Finally, the clock was hung back in place. Leo gently pushed the pendulum. There was a moment of silence. Then, the ticking began. The most beautiful sound Leo had ever heard. Not the sound of inspiration, but the sound of discipline. The next day, the old man returned. He stood still, listening to the clock. "I haven't heard this sound since I was a child." Leo understood the final lesson. The work was never about proving himself. It was about serving something meaningful to others. Leo fixed the clock, but more importantly, he fixed himself. Motivation is the spark. Discipline is the engine that carries you forward. Don't worry about the whole staircase. Just take the next step. Do one small thing every day.